What's up?
Yo, what's up, chat? What's up, LFQ? I know we got other people in here too, but I don't want to call you out until you say hello. Not trying to make anyone nervous. Also, I'm pretty proud of stream title today. I think, Tony, that's a good one. That was Tony original.
I remember what it is already. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
Oh, there it is, Lurks. What's up, Striva? There you are, brother. I just wanted to say hello, but I didn't want to be like, Striva, I know you're there.
I saw some meme about that this morning. It was like when you join a stream with 2 viewers and the streamer starts calling you out and thanking you for joining.
It's so weird. Yeah, like you can't do that. You can't do that. As someone who has Lurk, it sucks to get called out because like, oh, I just wanted to be here, bro. I wanted to like support. I didn't want to necessarily chat. Leave me alone. Ah. Yeah,
I remember
exactly.
you telling me that like day one for sure.
Never call out the lurkers. It makes them leave. It's the weirdest shit. They will literally just leave the stream and be like, I'm gonna go to another stream. So yeah, lurks are great. We love the lurkers. We know that there's a lot of them. You guys are fantastic. No pressure to chat. I know that we sometimes get really deep on technical stuff, and it can be something where you're like, fuck, I don't even know how to talk about this. Oh, we got some knocks in the YouTube? Oh shit. Only call out LFQ at all times. Yeah, exactly. The goal is to make LFQ uncomfortable. Ah, what face? I love it. So I think I was looking at some news this morning in the game industry, trying to see like what's up. We got a couple topics. One of the things that I think I kind of wanted to start with was the cost of video games, because there's this continuing discourse about how games need to be over $100. And I want to say it was it's GTA, right? That's kind of like leading the charge, saying GTA 6 is gonna be like over $100. I just want to come out and say that that's absurd, and that is crazy. It's just a crazy way to think about it. Like, if you're making a product that costs that much, it's basic economics. It's like a, value proposition that's bad. No one wants to spend that on their hobby. It's not going to work that way. Over 100 reasons to not buy the game. Exactly, LFQ. We know in 2024, multiple indie games have made a ton of fucking money, and they were like $40. So I'm also probably like hurting our algorithm by swearing in the first couple minutes of the stream. No, we're good. We have the 2-minute buffer.
It's supposed to be like what, first 60 seconds, 30 seconds?
Yeah.
I can't remember. And that's only YouTube, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we don't make money off of YouTube yet. It doesn't do anything for us. Well, I should say we can super chat. We can get super chats, but we've never had a payout from YouTube. So the better, thing for us would be coffee, or what's the other shit? Twitch has been going. Twitch is good. Where you guys are paying our, operation costs through Twitch. So that's amazing. You guys are fantastic. Nobody wants to spend that on their hobby. 40K tabletop fans weep. Yeah, exactly, dude. Games Workshop has it nailed. But okay, I will say this. There's this really interesting thing about video games that's different from other forms of entertainment. Like a tabletop game, you have to interact with other human beings. When you're playing a video game, you can play single player. There's not really any super good single player tabletop games that exist. I'm sure there are a few. People will correct me. It's fine. But the point that I'm making is that until video games, there wasn't really a way for someone to play a game by themselves and be entertained and have a good time. So when you think about that, if you're like, I'm going to go spend some time by myself enjoying an activity, I don't want to spend over $100 on this. Crazy. There's a lot of people who don't game, degen hours like myself or some of you other gamers. There's a lot of people who are pretty casual and they play 3 to 6 hours a week or something like that, right? Like, it's very small amounts of time. And if you're asking that person to pay $100, that's crazy. They're just not going to do it. So when you're thinking about creating a big, broad appeal game to everybody, and that's your funnel, you can't raise the price. That's weird. It doesn't make any sense. Scope your project down. Have a smaller budget. You don't need these massive teams of 1,000 people. All kinds of stuff. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but I think as a business leader, if you are a person who's running a hundreds of billions or hundreds of millions of dollars, IP, you can't expect people to pay more. It's crazy. So I think that's nuts. And especially, and as you're talking about with microtransactions, very different. Microtransactions they also exist, and allowing a person to engage with their hobby in that way is much better, as long as it's not a premium game. So if you pay $100 or $70 or $60, something like that, and then you have microtransactions, that's where it gets really gross. So I don't know. Obviously, the industry is not learning anything, and the people who are running these businesses are just they're really playing with fire, and they're going to continue to get burned. They're going to make these big live service games with hundreds of millions of dollar budgets, teams of 1,000 people. They're going to keep hemorrhaging money and burning it all to the ground and making more room for us to exist. So it's good for us.
I think like LFQ talking about spending all of that money on MPX in Counter-Strike, for example, Valve has kind of shown that like that's not a safe investment, but that like it's not a complete waste of money, because they, if I'm not mistaken, carried forward all of the microtransactions from every version of Counter-Strike that has existed into the modern version, whereas guaranteed there's people that have spent way more money than that in GTA 5 that are probably getting a reset when we go to GTA 6. And
I would also say
for a new game too.
It's a divisive game, but League of Legends nailed the pricing model, I think. League of Legends, free to play. There are tons of ways to spend money, and you can spend thousands of dollars in League. There's that one Ezreal skin that was like $25 or something like that.
But you can spend money on like an entire new character. That's like a whole new way to play the game, and comes with what could be argued as like new content and stuff. That's more than just cosmetic.
Yep, totally. Yeah, no worries, LFQ. That whole cost conversation is absurd. I think it's obviously I don't think there's anyone who's necessarily opposed to it, unless you're talking about games journalism, who is like championing it, opposed to the concept of not spending the money, as a consumer. I think gamers are just going to be like, we're not going to do that. That's fucking stupid. So, and games journalists, for whatever reason, are championing this expensive, hey, what's up, Brightside? What's up, Adder? Love to have you here, boys. But yeah, it's crazy. I'm just like, what are these people thinking? I don't understand. Like, it's crazy. I'm going to read that quote that you put up there, Tony. A good company raises salaries in line with inflation so that their staff don't die or something, but games prices haven't risen with inflation. Yes, that's normal. This isn't the reason the industry is in the shit for now, but it is an uncomfortable truth. On the other hand, the responsibility for game developers to make sure that the game they show lives up to that promise, and the investment from the player. Yeah, exactly. That's the most important part. It's all about the value proposition being there.
And that quote's from the publishing director at Larian.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. You're not supposed to say this out loud. Yeah, yeah, totally. That's... dude, yeah, okay. So I've said a little bit about it. We've been streaming for a year now, Adder, and early on, so this time last year, I was talking about a lot. I was kind of going in on the industry in AAA pretty hard, because that's when we had, what was it, like 20,000 people lost jobs or something like that? A crazy amount of people lost jobs. And I was talking about it in terms of it's the leadership making these decisions. And that's why I keep saying there's like, CEOs that come from traditional big brands, and they're like, I'm going to get into games because it's a new vertical, and I'm going to try to make this work, and I have all this acumen, and they just don't get it. They literally just do not get it. And so I'm here for it. They can keep fumbling, and we will be fine. Welcome back, LFQ. And Adder, I guess specifically about games journalism. So I was saying, I did an interview with Game Informer about the Whisper and 0 Hour when I was at Bungie. And just to be clear with you guys, the reason that interview happened is because a person I was working with wrote up the list of interview questions. We all answered them. And then he sent the completed interview to the games journalist, and that dude just took all our information and wrote an article. He didn't reach out to us. We sent him everything that he should say, and he was like, yeah, bet. And he wrote an article about it. It's fucking weird. It's really weird. But that's normal. When you see big reviews and you're like, why is this reviewed so well? It's paid. It is 100% paid. So there's no objectivity in games journalism. It doesn't exist. It's not just Activision. It's literally everybody at her. And you know this. But for those of you who don't work in the industry and, hang out and chat and like want to learn more about it from us, I'm not ashamed to say that that's the reality of it. So like, for example, okay, so we did a marketing beat for Hyperskate and we got featured in a showcase. The reason we were able to do that is because we have, an existing good relationship with the guy who's running the showcase. We were talking to him before he did his own thing. He was working in publishing. He was one of the contacts that we were talking to about funding and all that. And he's like, hey, actually, I don't do that anymore. He's like, I'm starting my own games journalism thing. And so we chatted a bunch and I was like, hey, bro, like your pricing is fair, but it is too expensive for us. And he goes, well, since you guys are little, we'll do you a solid and let you, throw Hyperskate in the feature and we'll do it for free. So that was perfect for us. That was great. And so, yeah, it was cool. He just had faith in us. We did a couple back and forth sessions, showed him what we were working on, showed him early concepts for the game, showed him the trailer. And when we got it to a point where he was like, okay, this looks good, he was like, yeah, I'll put it in the feature. So we were good. Just loading Polygon front page would frustrate me for many years. Yeah, dude. I struggle to find anything okay, and more often than not, I'm looking at Video Games Chronicle now, which I don't think is super good, but it is what it is. It's one of the better ones. But yeah, I think anymore, who's probably like the best person to go to? SkillUp would be my guess. SkillUp's pretty solid. I think SkillUp, I don't always align with his opinions on games, and the dude is like somewhat of a professional reviewer at this point, just through his own channel. He admits like it's hard for him to play as much of a game as he needs to, which is definitely a problem, and I get that. Games nowadays are made, they're so big that you can't really play a whole game and give like an objective review, especially if you have to review like 1,000 games in a year. It's just not possible. So I think that the reviewers need to be more discerning about what they're reviewing. I personally love Donkey. I think he's really funny, but I wouldn't say that he's like a review type of a guy. Like, I don't go look at Donkey to be like, oh, this is an honest review of a game. I look at Donkey to be like, this is really funny. And, the dude makes me laugh.
You can tell when Donkey actually really, really does like something, though, because he'll be serious about it and talk about it in an earnest way, and you don't get that almost ever. But and I think he's had a few games that I think almost everybody will agree he just like kind of missed on or like didn't understand that are really good games. But yeah, I mean, overall I agree. I think he's extremely good.
I think just the Donkey videos I look for are like Ultimate Skyrim, where he put like 32 mods on his Skyrim. It was just insanity with the Tommy Wiseau horse. Like, that shit was so funny. Okay, so we've got that. What was the okay, yeah, this is a good segue. I could go into, in our conversation about the cost of games and journalism and all that this morning, we were also talking about wow, what's it called, Tony? The mobile, or not mobile, but the Elden Ring thing.
Oh, Night Ring.
Night Ring, yeah. So that is interesting because From is more concerned with making a good game, right? So when you look at Night Rain, I think I called it Night Ring, but either way, Night Rain, they were talking about balancing the game for single player or multiplayer, and they balanced it for 1 or 3 players. They didn't balance it all for 2. And their answer to like, why didn't you balance for 2 was, we just didn't even consider it. So it's a part of them really focusing on the core experience and making sure that's good. That is the correct way to go about making video games. When you care about the product first, you're just gonna make good stuff. Hey, what's up, Art? Oh, thanks. You're a cutie patootie. Yeah, we're dishing a little bit about the game industry. Sorry, Tony. What were you? So Ishizaki was the publishing person. Who's Ishizaki?
I believe he is like the lead on this project, and
Okay.
he was the co-lead on Bloodborne with Miyazaki. So
Okay, cool. Awesome. So yeah, obviously Ishizaki knows what's going on. Ishizaki understands the product. And if Ishizaki says we built it for 1 or 3 players, it makes the most sense that it's probably going to be good for 1 or 3 players. It's probably not good for 2, and it would make the game bad. So I love that shit. That is, as the kids say, based. That would be a based decision. Dub to whoever gave you a sub since the emote is peak. Yeah, dude. It was probably, if I had to guess, it was either going to be Anna or Artificial Sky, because they go hard. It could have also been LFQ, but I think LFQ was dropping bits, not gift subs. So 10,500 devs laid off in 2023, 14,000 laid off in 2024. Yeah, man. So many fucking people lost jobs. I mean, I got hit with that. So I was working on Return to Moria, and towards the end of the project, like, I got hit with a layoff. That's how it goes. I wasn't the only one. There were, several people on the team that got cut, but that's just how it goes. I was expensive, and yeah, of course we're still working on the VR game. We showed our trailer again this morning, but yeah, Return to Moria. So, okay, I have mixed opinions. I know that, like, Nox played a bit of Return to Moria. He said he enjoyed it. I felt like that game was somewhat mid, especially at launch. I think we could have done a better job. There were a lot of problems with the project, but, if you're into survival crafting and you're a Lord of the Rings fan, it's a good game for you, but it's not particularly deep or innovative. Yeah, exactly, Adder. So when I was working on that, I was a design lead. I did procedurally generated hazards and content. So, like, as maps get, populated with PCG stuff, there's different, like, activities and hazards and things that occur. I was the lead for those. And then also, so, like, if there's like a goblin camp or something, or an orc camp, like, I designed those as well. I did the first pass of all of the boss encounters as well. I'm not that type of a designer. I've never done that before, so that was definitely challenging. We were way over scoped and everything, not because of me or decisions I made, but because of the initial designs. So I had to take those, refine them, make them fit within the game, and then get those going. So the other thing I did was in-game cinematics using the scene tool in Unreal. Not an animator, but that's the way it goes. So I basically caught all of the
do you mean a sequencer?
Yeah. Did I say sequencer?
You said scene. I was just making sure that.
Yeah. So I always pick that up because at Bungie it was called the scene tool. In Unreal it's called the sequencer. So
in Unreal, a scene is like a very, like, basic actor type thing. So I was just making sure there wasn't something I didn't know about.
No. I'm just fucking my terminology up. When you work in certain tools for so long, like, it just becomes like that's what it's called. Art says, I'm into free gaming that doesn't require more than 8 gigs of RAM. Yeah, I feel that, dude. Yeah, so I worked on Return to Moria. That was the last game before I decided to go full-time on Fractal Grove. Yeah, Hyperskate is our VR game. We are working on it a lot. We're intentionally not showing a lot of it. We go back and forth on how much we want to show, because we want to show you guys what we're building, but we also don't want to spoil what we think is really cool and exciting, because when you see it, in this atmosphere or in this presentation, it just doesn't come across the same way. So also, yes, please go wishlist Hyperskate. We are up on Steam. It'd be really awesome, even if you guys don't have a VR headset, the wishlist help. Let's see. Oh, I missed a couple comments from Knox. Civ 7 pricing. Yeah. Okay. So I bought Civ 7. I decided to play it. I've played Civ since Civ 1. It's one of my favorite franchises for games. I wanted to make a joke that the 7 in Civ 7 stands for the change in pricing where they went up to $70. I will say it's good. I was considering refunding it if it wasn't good, and if I didn't, if I played less than 2 hours, and I definitely played more than 2 hours and I was enjoying it. So it's cool. It's still faithful to the original gameplay loop, but it is also new and fresh. So there's a lot of really interesting things they're doing with it. So I'm into it. I'm definitely into the game. I don't feel any regret, but I do think a $70 price tag is a little silly. How much control will you have on the movement in Hyperskate? A ton, Art. So one of the things that's important to us is in VR, and I've talked about this a little bit, most games have a lot of motion controls. You need to be standing, you're moving around and, doing a bunch of shit. We're trying to minimize that so you can still have a really good experience with, face button controls. So if you're looking at Quest controller here, a lot of your movement, actually all of your movement pretty much, except for some very subtle head control stuff, is all on your thumbsticks and your face buttons. So as you're moving around, you're using traditional gameplay controls, so you can lay down, sit on the couch, whatever, have a good time without jumping around and being like, oh fuck, I'm tired in 20 minutes and I'm sweaty and I want to get out of this. So we're trying to be more conscious about what the experience is and give ourselves a space with our experiences that say this can feel like a more traditional. It's hard to explain. It's not like a traditional gaming experience. When I sit down to play games, I want to play for 3-4 hours, right? There's not a lot of VR games that you can sit down and play for 3 or 4 hours and have a really good time and enjoy it without just being fatigued. So comfort is a major concern in VR because the gameplay experience is just different. A good example I can give is Triangle Strategy for Quest was really, really cool. I like that it suited well to just laying in bed, playing in VR. You can watch a movie or something else at the same time if that's your thing. Overstimulate, have multiple things coming into your brain. It's all good. So think about that. There's some conversations going on about drifts and shit. Yeah, of course. We're talking about tricks. We have multiplayer Art. Art, you say you don't have a VR headset. Isn't the whole thing about VR movement and stuff? Not necessarily. I think that's early generation, and the easiest answer for devs is let's do motion controls. Let's do this stuff. Let's make you be in a new world. So I think there's a good balance to strike between fully immersed stuff and playing a video game. Because when you do a fully immersed experience, you lose that ability to play a game for a longer session. So having the balance between fully immersed, lots of motion controls, really being in the world, and being able to play for longer is really important. Let's see. I don't know if y'all have watched them. Viva La Dirt League's dev series is right on the nose in making light of game publishers. I haven't seen any of those, but if you've got some links or something at it, that'd be cool. I'll check them out. Core game loop objective for Hyperskate, point streaks, minigames. So the best way to describe it at a high level is Steep or Riders Republic with some Metroidvania exploration, expansion, and character upgrades. So as you're going through the world and learning more about the world and how to play the game, you'll have new stuff to do and new ways to do it. We want multiplayer to be a core part of the experience too, but not necessary. More fun with your friends instead of, it's exploration, solving puzzles, and just really the most fun we've had in Hyperskate is just exploring. So making that a core part of the game is really important. Yeah, Forza Horizon, Metroidvania type stuff. Exploration to unlock stuff. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be cool after the game being released to have mods let you have shootouts and stuff. Yeah. So Art, we talked about. Yeah, no worries, Adder. We talked about shooting as a mechanic, and we're not sure that it works yet because controlling your character. So like when you're shooting while moving, it's not the same thing as like focusing on, you know, your riding line or like doing a cool trick and, you know, watching your buddy do a cool trick. I don't know if you've done any like snowboarding or anything like that, but when you're out on the slopes, it's really fun to like hit a sick line. And what I mean by that is like you have this really cool carve, you're maintaining a lot of speed, you hit a ridge line and you jump like, you know, 10 feet in the air. In our game, when you hit that sick line, you're maintaining a lot of speed. You're doing like 200 miles per hour. You're going very fast. And then when you hit that ridge line, you're going to jump like 20, 30 feet in the air. So the experience feels a lot like snowboarding, but at a crazy scale. And because of the way we've built some of these mechanics, you can actually skate uphill, which is really fun. So Tony's showing off our map right now. This is literally our game. So this isn't like anyone else's stuff or, you know, a weird prototype of something. We often will show like prototypes for different mechanics and things like that, but this is actually our game. So all of this is actual terrain, you know, or all of this mesh for the landscape is generated from actual terrain maps. It's cool. So the natural terrain pipeline into mesh was a really cool thing that Tony figured out how to do. It gave us this huge landscape that we could work with just off the rip. And yeah, we're building things in this map that are really interesting. So think about a mix between organic, natural landscape. So mountains and valleys and streams and riverbeds and all this stuff, all the stuff that Tony's showing right now. We have that, but we also have like specifically designed. Yeah, what speed are you going now, Tony, as you show this?
This is really fast. This is probably like 500 to 1,000 miles per hour. Yeah.
Yeah, and in VR, the speed scale feels way better. So when you're going
you don't go quite this fast in VR, but
yeah,
I just have this turned up really high right now.
If you are going this fast in VR, you're flying. It's which is also kind of cool, but it's a little faster than we want to go. So let's see. I was saying, so we've got all this natural terrain, but we've also got like terrain parks and stuff. We're building things with other geometry that'll be really fun too. So you can, you know, imagine you find a mountain peak with your friends, you're exploring, and on that mountain peak there is a like a checkpoint or a waypoint or you know, like a hub of activity. So you're like, I discovered the front peak, right? That's one of the locations that we've been naming. We have a bunch of different names for things that are just working titles right now. But you've discovered Front Peak, and when you're there, you have this, you know, a kiosk or something, a hub that you can interact with, and you might be able to do a slalom run, or you could do a race to the bottom, or a time trial. So we have a lot of those things planned that we're building. And we've got a bunch of different ways to do that. So we have some gates and other things that work for those mechanics. So as you're exploring and doing these activities, you're changing the state of the world. You're doing different things. So imagine like, we're still figuring this out. We don't know if we can ship it, but we want to do like weather patterns and changes to foliage and, you know, the natural world evolving. So say there's like, you start in a desert, right? And as you're exploring, you go and find like a snowy mountain pass. And like now that's a new place that you can skate around. And then there's a forest, so you can do tree runs. The trees are really important. So Tony's trying to solve that technologically. So here's an example of like the Front Peak hub. And then we've got these ramps and gates and stuff like that. So this is a run that we developed. And you basically, so imagine that would like spawn in when you select that activity. You cannot fall off the board. Okay, sorry. I want to read Art's message. If you add shooting as a mechanic, it could have some recoil that if used can give you a small boost. Yeah, so we've considered that, But the problem is when you add in shooting, then you have a different player verb and a different objective. So we need to really hone and solidify the verbs we have now. And what I mean by that is like player can skate, player can jump, player can do a grab trick, player can do a spin trick, right? Those are like the verbs that we're really targeting right now. So adding in gun mechanics is a different thing entirely.
And in VR, your movement has to have a direction of reference, I think is probably the best way to say it. And so in Hyperskate currently, when you accelerate, the direction that it pushes you is where you're looking. So that's kind of how you steer to some extent. And you do have joystick steer, but as soon as you start implementing things where, like, if I'm trying to shoot, I have to look over here, but I'm trying to go this way at the same time, we don't really necessarily have a way for you to like be able to do both of those. And there's only so many buttons on the controller, and it only is like so intuitive. So that's where it starts to become challenging, I guess, to, you know, design something that remains fun and intuitive and kind of a little casual to play. So yeah.
So think about it this way, Art. One of the mini games that we thought was really cool that fits with the vibe of Hyperskate is like fishing. So we have all these lakes and rivers and ponds and stuff like that. So imagine you find this lake here and you like fish and you hit the rainbow vape and you're chilling. And there could be rewards that you get for fishing. I'm not saying we're putting fishing in, but we think an activity like that fits well because it's a conscious downbeat from the gameplay. So if you're feeling really intense, we want to give you some moments to chill, enjoy the scenery, have a good time. Like,
and people like to use VR as a social space, with VR chat and Gorilla Tag and all of these things. And so we do kind of want to allow for like that to be a possibility in this game, because that's a very important thing for a lot of people who use VR. And the fact that we have multiplayer and you can do this with your friends in the first place is very important to us. So something like fishing, or, you know, something slightly more stationary and chill, it would be important for that.
I love the creativity, Art. That's really cool. I like that you're being inspired by what we're showing and what we're talking about. Yeah, and those are good ideas. There are definitely problems with making underwater like work, and the problems I can think of is like we would then have to design an underwater player controller and all kinds of stuff like that. But that doesn't mean we won't do it. It just means that I like where your head's at. I like what you're thinking. I like what you're talking about. Yeah, fishing and chilling with the homies in Hyperskate. That's definitely the vibe we want to go for, LFQ. So I've talked about it a little bit, but one of the I was like, I want to know if spin tricks would work. So how would I do a spin trick in our current control system? And I'm in a swivel chair, so I'm going to back up and show you guys. But I'm in VR and I'm controlling my board, and I hit a jump, and then I go like this. And it works. It literally worked really well. And, you know, the other people we were playing with, I think it was Ramblin' Rose, Tony, and maybe Omni. But the spin trick, like, looked perfect. Like, my board rotated, my guy rotated. It was awesome. It was really fun. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. Yeah, absolutely, you can do quick turns. The quick turns are hard to do, and that's admittedly one of the things that we're trying to figure out. How to make a quick turn work while keeping comfort in mind. And comfort is when you're in VR, you get this disconnect from your inner ear and your other senses that keep you balanced. So you can instill like vertigo and motion sickness in players very easily. So that's why we have the head control part, and you go in the direction you're looking in addition to having thumbstick controls. The head control is really subtle, so most players don't really notice it. But what that does is it makes the disconnect a little less, because you're always going where you're looking. It makes you not get motion sick. The spots where we have hit some comfort issues are when players accidentally go backwards and they don't mean to. That can definitely make you a little wobbly and, you know, feel crazy. What if your spinny chair disabled? Then you won't be able to do a spin trick. But we're trying to figure that out. We want to make it so that you're not, you can play on the couch too. So yeah, we're figuring those parts out. The biggest problems that we're trying to solve now are making the foliage work and foliage being trees and bushes and stuff like that to make it performant and look really good.
I'll show the VR a little bit here while you're talking.
Yeah, nice. Go for it. The reason why that matters with frame rate is because that's another comfort thing. The higher your frame rate in VR, the less likely you are to get motion sickness and the better it feels. So making sure we have a capped frame rate on all HMDs is really important. So we've gotten the game running at 120 FPS, which equates to like 90 FPS or 70 FPS, something like that on the Meta Quest. So we've achieved that. It's really good. So we're trying to maintain that performance. Maybe they should be meant to be a little hard since it would encourage epic drifting. Yeah, exactly. Do a barrel roll in bed. Yeah, exactly. High frame rate equals big, smooth, and good to eyes. So obviously on VR will be important. Exactly, Art. Hey guys, LFQ. Yeah, so that's definitely it. So Tony's got, we've got a speedometer there. So this is 250 miles per hour. So here's the problem. When you show VR flat, it doesn't look as good, and it's very hard. No, you can see both hands. He's just holding out his right hand. So he's got both hands up now. There you go. You got both hands. And you can look down and see your body too. So yeah, you got a board, you got your body. The laser pointers are things for us. So that's kind of a debug thing. We're probably not going to ship with laser pointers. The spark trail that you see, the effects behind Tony there, those are really important. Tony, can you do a drift? Art wants to see you try to do a drift or like a big slide or a carve. There you go. Yeah, hit this peak, bro. We also have a jump button. So yeah, Tony's like flying through the air right now. Yeah, it's super cool. Yes, absolutely custom boards. We've got like 4 or 5 different boards right now. Yeah, Tony's really good at snap controls. So I should back up. You can physically rotate and that works, but you can also use snap controls and spin yourself with the thumbstick. So you could do all that. Yeah, it's really cool. If you have an HMD and you want to play, we have it up on Steam, so you guys can play with us, and we'd love to do that. We've got, less than 10 people who've actually, got codes right now. But what we ask for, if you want to play Hyperskate, is you sub to YouTube, you sub to Twitch, and you're in the Discord. If those 3 things are true, we'll get you a code, and we'll play Hyperskate with you on Steam. Nice. I'm glad you think that's a big dub, Art. Thank you. So yeah, this is Hyperskate. This is what we've been building. We're really excited about it. Art, you mentioned you wanted a secret that was like a hidden egg or something. So when I was working on Destiny, one of the biggest things I did were secrets in the game. And Tony missed the gate. So the secrets are a really important thing to me that I've built in video games. So you should expect there to be a lot of really cool reveal moments and stuff like that. I've done it in AAA, and it was successful. So I'm very confident that we can execute on that and make some really cool moments for players. So that's why I'm reluctant to show off a lot of the game. Oh, Tony! I'm reluctant to show off a lot of it because I don't want to spoil a lot of these secrets. Yes, Hyperskate lore is real. I wrote probably like a 10-page short story that describes the player experience from beginning to end. Don't worry, we'll share a lot of that stuff after the game is out. So we're gonna be talking about all the cool things that we did, why we built them, how we built them, after the game is already out there and people are discovering these things on their own, because we don't want to give away all the secrets to you guys up front. We want you guys to go discover them and find them and have a good time, exploring. And that's the core point of the game. Also, FICO, I hope you're doing well in the old Texas. Yo, what's up, Omni? Yeah, we're showing Hyperskate and talking about it, and Yeah, it's cool. We've got a lot of questions about it, so it was really, really good. I really appreciate you guys asking and being interested in Hyperskate. So see, you can see Tony is skating uphill here. So we're thinking that this will be an unlockable part of character progression, is your ability to go up slope more and more. Don't know what it's like with a headset. The gates are hard to see. Yes, absolutely. No, you're not wrong, Striva. They're definitely easier to see in VR. And this run intentionally has some gates placed in spots that are difficult to see because I wanted to have a mix of like mastery and like both understanding the run and like where you need to speed up, where you need to slow down, where you need to turn. So this is a prototype run. They're all not going to be this hard, and the gates we can adjust the size of and do a bunch of stuff with. So these are intentionally made to be narrow. This is a prototype level, so, and I say level being like the slalom run that he's doing going through these gates. Let's see. Cool idea to have a Hyperskate map where you try to break into a bank and skate, trying to dodge lasers and stuff. Yeah, so hazards are definitely a thing we're thinking about too, because death in VR and resetting your position can be really jarring. So we're trying to think of a mix of failure conditions for soft failure and hard failure. And what I mean by that is like, oh, you missed a gate on your run, like, you know, Tony bonked into that gate, he needs to, you know, go around it or go through it or something, right? That's a soft failure condition, and that's really only going to hurt the speed of his run. And, you know, he can still complete it, but he might get like an extra couple seconds, you know what I mean? That's a soft failure condition. A hard failure condition would be like you know, fell to the bottom of a hole and we have to kill your character because there's no good way for you to get back out without being frustrated. So like a reset in that way. There's a concept that I don't want to get too deep into, but imagine there will be areas of the game where there are hard failure conditions because you're trying to unlock something for progression or a new area of the map. So if you get into this more challenging area, you could have a hard failure condition there. We have to restart the challenge, do the whole thing over. And we need to think about how that relates to the player experience. And like, we have ideas. I'm intentionally being vague because I don't want to give away all the secrets. The unlock should be to get a mini jet engine on the back of your board that allows power descent. Exactly, Omni. So yeah, that's exactly what I mean by going up slope. A heart failure condition is a serious medical issue. Yes, it is. Be cool to have a Hyperskate map where you try to break into a bank. No, I already read that. Where's the heart failure condition? Am I? Oh, you were just memeing. I got you. I'm sorry, bro. Yes, absolutely, Art. You will be unlocking new boards, unlock new trails, unlock the look of your player. So you could change helmets, your like chest armor, your legs, your arms. We have a concept for different kinds of capes that you can put on, or like a sash or a scarf. So we want to allow a bunch of different kinds of player expression from, you know, a 90s, 2000s extreme sports snowboarder all the way up to like No Man's Sky space explorer on a you know, futuristic hoverboard thing. So everything in between. We've even talked about crazy ideas like your player character being a cloud of particles and stuff like that. So the trails that you get to are going to be things that you'll be able to customize. So a lot of cosmetics, and I'll say this up front, we don't want to do microtransactions. So we're already talking about how to do that through unlocks in the game instead of saying, if you want this cool skin, it's $20. We don't like that. We want to charge up front for Hyperskate. So we want it to be a premium game. And, you know, I've spoken several times about how I think MTX on top of that is disingenuous and unfair to the consumer. So we want to do in-game unlocks directly related to your achievement and mastery of the game, because that's more fun. Could also unlock a headlamp for your board and ground effects. Yeah, totally. Those are things we're talking about. There's a performance and, you know, technical restraints on dynamic lighting. So we're talking about that. We need to solve for foliage first. so that we have all this really nice looking grass and we've got trees and stuff. We had a bunch of trees for the trailer. We had to pull them out because the perf was really, really bad. But Tony's solving that problem. And what I mean is, when we cut the trailer and we have that forested area, we went from 0 trees to like 30,000 trees. So I painted like 30,000 and built some forests and all that stuff. Looks really good, but doesn't perform super well. The frame rate dropped to like 30 FPS instead of 90. So that's a big part of the world partition. Hence the stream title, HLOD My World Partition, bro. So solving perf is really important. Just imagining unlocking a jet engine on your board going off flying. Exactly. That's the type of stuff we want to go for. Games should either be free with in-game purchase or purchase and start everything else to be free. Exactly. Yes. I strongly agree with that, Art. I think that when we get into the area of a premium game, best example I can give, I was strongly opposed to Destiny being a premium game with a lot of microtransactions in there. Really good for the business, made a ton of money, not great for the player base. I remember Tony, I think the thing that made Tony quit playing D2 was the Guardian games or something like that. He spent a bunch of time unlocking all these things and he got all these cool cosmetics, and then in the next release they were invalidated. And he was like, I spent like 60 fucking hours of my life unlocking all this stuff, and now I can't even use it. So why did I do that? I agree. That wasn't great. I didn't design that. That wasn't me. What I designed was the Whisper and 0 Hour. And in both of those, they were free content, secret release. We didn't announce it beforehand. Let players discover these moments. And when they discovered them, they had a really good time, a fun challenge. It was something like only 20% of the player base completed it. But when you completed it and you got your super cool gun reward, like this guy back here, where are we? This guy back here, the sniper rifle came from the Whisper. You got the gun itself, and then the microtransaction shop had 2 skins for it that were premium that you could buy. And the way I was thinking about the design for that was, this is like a tip jar. So if players like this, they buy the skin. You know, it wasn't ever surfaced. So I was very adamant with the rest of the team saying, I don't want the gun skins to be in the store before players even know this thing exists. So my argument was hung on, this is a secret, and if we show players this gun skin in the store before they can even access it, it's a moment that makes the player feel really bad, and they don't know it's there. So I got the team to set up some unlock flags that made sure the skins didn't even show up in the store unless you completed the activity. It was the most successful microtransaction content in the game. So it worked. It was really good. So I'm not saying expect microtransactions in Hyperskate. I'm saying don't expect them in Hyperskate. Microtransactions were something that business leadership were like, if we're making all this free content, we got to get money back somehow. And that was kind of it. That was how we compromised there. Let's see. I like the idea of trail runs. You could even have some that have a challenge to do it in reverse. Exactly, LFQ. That's 100% what we're talking about. And those are designs we're already working on. Should the grass spread out while you skate on it from wind and stuff? Yeah, so we have some fake wind. I think the wind on this is just animations on the grass meshes.
Over this way. Yeah, it's Vertex animations currently.
Okay, cool.
So wind and grass and interactable grass on top of the challenge that we already faced with the grass is probably something that I am not positive we will deal with. But I was just talking to Adder about all of this yesterday because he has some more fancy AAA experience with stuff like this, and it is a difficult problem to solve for sure.
Omni says, interestingly, I don't mind MTX as long as you can equally unlock additional stuff for free. It feels like MTX helps the game company remain invested in improvements rather than abandoning the game once the buzz wears off. And I don't know what word you were going for. there. And reckon you on premium sales fall revenue. Got it. Yeah, premium sales fall off. Yeah, that's totally true. And of course, the statement that I made about we don't want MTX is potentially naive, and you know, people might be judgmental and saying you're leaving money on the table. Maybe we add MTX later because we are, but I want to say right now that we don't see a reason to do it.
Yeah, like the guy who made Balatro probably never intended to ever update that game again, and you know, here we are. So if we got into that situation, I imagine we would probably, you know, not stand firm on some of these statements, but it'll just depend on what happens.
Oh, Adder says the grass looks good. Adder likes it.
It does. I think it looks better in flat screen. The problem, especially though, is that there's a lot of situations like this one right here where I'm looking downhill and I can very clearly see the edge of the ring. I'm sure you guys probably can too. And this is not the world partition map because that one is not looking quite as good as this one yet, but I did recolor the under texture on that one to be a little closer to the color of the grass, and I do think that actually helps quite a bit. But I don't know. It's clearly not feasible for there to be grass on every green part that I can see here, of course, but if it would just go far enough and blend in such a way that I couldn't really see the edge of it, then I would be happy. And, you know, it'd be cool if it could be twice as dense as this too, but we'll get there. I'm slowly working my way towards it. So
LFQ says just have $120 launch price, Kappa. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We're not going to do that. I think we've talked about we don't want it to be $60 because I think $60 for a VR game is kind of out of reach. I don't think a lot of people are
personally. So
what's that?
I'd rather people play it personally. So,
yeah, exactly.
You know, whatever price is going to get the most people to buy it is the one that I'm interested in.
We're probably thinking somewhere between like 40 and $20, but we have to make a call based on what we think sales will be. We'll know a lot more of that closer to launch.
I'll say just how much of our ideas make it into the game too. Like if we did everything we talked about, I feel like $40 price tag maybe is justifiable, but if it, you know, is more basic, then it probably won't be.
Yeah, absolutely. Omni says, oh wait, let's back up a little bit. Art says make ground grass colored when out of the ring so no one can tell. Yeah, the problem is that when you're close, you don't get a lot of depth in the color for the grass. So it's something we're figuring out still. This is looking really good compared to our first passes of grass. Yeah. It's significantly improved and it's looking pretty solid.
If I get in like an area where I can't see too far and I can't see like the, you know, kind of gross looking parts out there, I agree, it looks pretty good. And if the ground under texture on here was a little different and maybe these are scaled down just a bit, then I think this would be pretty solid. So yeah.
Omni says, I saw this happen in the mobile app stores. App developers quickly figured out the value of updating their app didn't match the one-time fee to download, so they quickly moved to a free download, but for advanced features, you had to pay for subscription to generate recurring revenue. So the other thing we don't want to do is get into games as a service. So if Hyperscape becomes the only game that we make, we've fucked up. We didn't do it the way we wanted to. So our goal is to make Hyperscape. We're not only a VR studio. We just really like VR. So we want to say we're making a VR game. Ideally, we get to a point where we can make a flat game that's a third-person action shooter, because we've had this game that we've been talking about for over 5 years now that we really want to make, that we're calling Railgun. So the goal is release some smaller titles, something more bite-sized that Tony and I can make. As we get bigger and we have more funding, we're going to move into the bigger games that we want to make. So we're starting with making small games that are within scope, even though admittedly Hyperskate is very big in scope, especially for us as a small team. We're going to get to the point that we can make, you know, we've got a team of like 25, 30 people and we can make something a lot bigger. So that's our goal with the business. And funding through you guys, funding through sales of our games. That's how we want to do it. We want to avoid, you know, partnerships where we can, because when you get into partnerships, they start dictating, you know, creative decisions and stuff like that. So, I mean, even Adder has mentioned something about how there was a game that, you know, required, because the publisher really wanted it, open world features. And like, if you're designing a game that isn't meant for open world, it's weird to shoehorn that shit in, because then you have to start rebuilding a bunch of stuff and redesigning the game. So yeah, we want to avoid that. There's obviously, it cuts both ways. That's bad for us because we're way smaller in scope, because we don't have, you know, $5 million to make a game. It's harder to make the game be the grand scope that we want, right? So we have to pare things down and you know, be more clever with how we make content and make games. Omni says, now I'm tripping on all the Tarkov stuff you could do in Hyperskate. Hunger, thirst, performance improves when you're fed. Board degrades over time, making it important to unlock or earn new boards, etc. We don't want to do that. Tony is shaking his head no, and I agree with Tony. The reason is because we want to make Hyperskate somewhat casual to hop in and out of, and we don't want to force you into really long play sessions. We want to say a 10-minute play session is just as valid as a 2-hour play session, and you're going to have just as much fun. Ideally, what we do is we make the game so that as a player, you go, I've done a lot of really cool things in this 10-minute play session. I want to do just one more. And that is the magic. When you're like, just one more run. Oh, what's over that mountain peak? I want to go over there. So that's the goal. yeah, LFQ, that's for the degen modders. If you want to make a hardcore Hyperskate with those mechanics, you can mod that shit. Yeah. We have talked about some mechanics for, okay, so when you can boost all the time at like max speed boost, it's fun.
Yeah, when I hold this trigger down, it is accelerating me in the direction of this red arrow on my hand, which is where my head is looking, at like 250 meters per second or something like that. So that's how I'm able to basically just go in a straight line like this, just hold this trigger down at all times.
So that being said, it starts to become a little fatiguing to hold the boost down all the time. So we're thinking about how you make it so the boost is interesting. That's where we got to the rainbow vape concept that you saw Tony make a couple weeks ago. So the idea here is, as you're skating along, you need to recharge your boost. Well, how do you do that? You hit the rainbow vape, and that, you know, makes you get more boost, and then you can boost harder. That's the mechanic we're thinking of for that. You should definitely totally add shrooms you can eat so your vision turns chaotic. So the boost, you know, that's what we're talking about.
What if the vape is in your thumb and you like do something and the tip flips open and you just like rip your thumb a little bit and then you blow out a cloud, and then that way you don't have to like pull something off your body and shit?
Yeah, totally.
That'd be a good solve, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So
while you guys were talking too, this is the world partition version, so this is different than what I was just skating around in. I do think the grass looks a little better. There's still a lot of pop in, but the outer ring blending is better. And you can see the HLODs were cooked with the old ground texture, so that's why it's yellow out there, and then it turns green, because that's like an LOD type thing. But this is all streaming and chunked and totally different than the other one that I was just showing you. And it's running pretty good. And this is also dynamic lighting, and the other one was static lighting. So in theory, I could change time of day and all sorts of stuff in real time in this one. So this is what we're trying to work towards right now. The other version is kind of the prototype that we've been working on for the last year.
Art says, I'm big anti-vape, so that's a no-no in my opinion. I get you. I understand what you're saying. Don't think of it as like using
tobacco use.
Yeah, it's not any of that.
You're just calling it that, but it won't come across that way at the end for sure.
Exactly. Think of it as recharging your power banks. Delivered through that. So that's kind of the it's a metaphor. It's not directly, you know, advocating, you know, smoking anything or whatever. Eating batteries. Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
There you go. Yep.
Adder says this build does seem to be better composed. The grass blending looks good.
That's literally just me retinting that underlying texture. I don't really think anything else is different, but I'm glad you think it looks better. Some of these like shadow things that are happening that you can see, I am having a hard time figuring out how to solve, but we're getting it there slowly but surely. So it's coming together.
Oh, I'm sorry, Art. You said I didn't answer your rocket question. Rocket, you can go to the moon map with lower gravity. So the problem with gravity changes is that they change the player experience pretty dramatically, and it can be difficult for players to understand, like, oh shit, why is my gravity weird now? But it's not a bad idea. Again, think about the mix between this natural terrain and, you know, custom designed challenges. So we've got this natural terrain, which is really cool and flowy, and you can just go anywhere and, you know, discover your own runs in addition to runs that we create. But also there will be like terrain parks with challenges in them for like traversing, you know, difficult sections and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll make sense. Why is my Tony, what is happening?
Something that happens on this map is like, I think my head ends up inside the ground in something's opinion, and it starts making it appear as if I'm like looking through the ground or something, even though I'm clearly not. Haven't figured out why that happens just yet, but yeah.
Oh, Adder was saying the trick works good enough then, in his opinion. He's saying it's looking really good, dude.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of realized too that like at least as is, this doesn't really hurt my perf. If I turn the grass up, it definitely does, but I can kind of like turn the grass off entirely and the numbers don't really change. So that makes me feel like I have it in a pretty good spot. I feel like there's got to be some optimizations in there with either, you know, nanite or just using pure PCG or something where I might be able to, you know, squeak a little more perf out of it. But I really want it to be kind of an extreme amount of grass like we were looking at in that Ghost of Tsushima video, where it just is, you know, very lush and deep and kind of goes as far as you can see. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but I definitely am going to try. But I've also had to kind of tell myself too, like I needed to focus on like making a game and stop looking at grass for a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. Just leave it like this for now, because like you said, this looks pretty good.
I will say that Tony is a perfectionist, and I like letting him like go all, you know, super focused on certain things. I do agree that I think the grass looks really good, especially when you're playing. I think it's working really well. This
version is night and day versus the other one. I was like, the other one is kind of embarrassing to me, and this one isn't too bad. So.
You're silly, bro. I think both look really good. But yeah, does ice make your board slip? Okay, so Art, that's one of the other things that we're talking about is
because I'm like totally sideways right now. So it's frictionless. Like, it's zero friction. I can just kind of rotate around.
Yeah, what we're talking about doing, like the way we would do that is imagine you're in a terrain park and you've got like a wooden surface, and you know how the wooden surface works, and then you've got like a concrete surface or a gravelly surface, and you know how that works. So maybe the gravel slows you down a little bit. So we're talking about different terrain types as a player choice. So that creates some affordance.
There probably would be different like friction coefficients on different types of surfaces long term. Yes.
Herd of animals to skate next to. Exactly. So we were talking about fauna as well. So imagine, like I was saying, you're in this barren landscape and you get to a new biome through one method or another. And in that new biome, you've got some birds and some deer and stuff like that. So those are things that we're talking about too. And when I say birds and deer, I don't necessarily mean literally birds and deer, but analogs to those life forms. So yeah, there's going to be a bunch of really interesting stuff. We've got some pretty crazy ideas, and it'll be very fun to implement these things and make them work. Birds on deer, Striva, or deer birds. That's probably the right play. Shadow of the Colossus creatures walking around you can skate on. 100%, dude.
Maybe not exactly that, but definitely kind of that type of shit for sure.
Yeah.
I was just going to show. So like if I start here, I don't have my board out right now, so I have friction and I'm standing as my character, which you can kind of see here. I'm really stuck in this terrain right now, but if I turn my board on, it's going to turn my friction off. And so the landscape will just kind of take me where it's going to take me if I don't pull my triggers or touch my joysticks or influence it in any way. So if I turn the board on and I just kind of like look around. It won't do anything really. If I move my body, it might kind of add some momentum into my person. But otherwise, I will just kind of start sliding here, you know, wherever the lie of the terrain is going to take me. And so, you know, the only way that you're steering or you're moving around is I'm just adding force to my character whenever I pull this trigger at that, you know, rate per second that I was talking about. And that's just going to push me in the direction that I'm looking for as long as I hold down that trigger with that much force. And it does the opposite. If I do the left trigger, it pushes me backwards. And so it is a little more like driving a boat, or what I imagine like flying a plane or something would have to be like, because you're really just kind of like adding force in a direction to influence the way you're going, but your momentum is going to keep carrying you kind of in the direction you were going to some extent too. It's not like a car where your tires are, you know, causing your orientation to change and stuff like that.
I really like all the creativity in chat. You guys have awesome suggestions, and I want to say this: subs to the channel, members of Discord, subs to YouTube. You guys will all be in the credits. You guys are going to also Art, sorry, I digress. Art was saying, why is the mountain turning into piss color? That's the texture stuff Tony was talking about. He didn't update the materials for this new version quite yet, so it's not dialed in right.
Yeah, and I'm not totally sure why the HLODs just do this sometimes when they load and unload, and it's just, this is a very new version of this map that I put together over the last like 5 days, so I don't totally understand everything that's going on with it yet, but we're getting there.
LFQ, if you don't want to be in the credits, you obviously won't have to be in the credits. I just want to say, if you are a supporter of us and you're here and you're a part of all the things in our community and plugged in, you guys will get what you want in the game. We'll do something for you for sure. So like, there's definitely already going to be something that, you know, Anna and Artificial Sky want in the game that will be there 100% guaranteed. Like, making Artificial Sky, we were joking about this, but making Artificial Sky like a Shrek ogre in like the swamp area of the game would be really fun. But if he doesn't want to do that, we won't do that. It'll be something that makes sense that you guys want to see, and you'll be, you know, immortalized in our games if that's something you desire. Or if you want like a little secret, you know, we can work together to figure out what that is. So yeah, like, however you guys want to be in the game, you can be a part of that. If you, again, like I said, Discord, Twitch, YouTube, you guys are all in there and you're a part of that. We have lists of all these things. We're tracking it all. But yeah, it'd be cool. Art, I don't like fart stuff. So I'm just going to say, no, we're not going to do any fart things. There was that reminds me, there was a, oh yeah, Omni, you too, of course, bud. There was a tweet where someone was procedurally generating toilets, and they were like, you'll never create the same toilet twice. I will say that working on Destiny, there was a creative director I worked with who was like, very firmly believed you should never model a bathroom or have a bathroom exist in the game. And I totally agree with that. And I'll explain why. Even though there are human structures in Destiny and you're in like a ruined human world, when you're playing a video game about collecting guns and shooting aliens across different planets in the solar system, when you put a bathroom in, it reminds players that bathrooms exist, and that takes you out of the fantasy of the game. So I think Tony and I were talking about the concept. It's a cinematic concept called Chekhov's gun. I talked about this during the Superliminal playthrough. Nothing in the game exists naturally. Everything in the game is placed there by a person and created by a person, someone who worked on the game itself. So when you choose to add things arbitrarily, there's an intention, or there should always be an intention behind it. And you should never add things arbitrarily to your game. You should only have the things in your game that are important to your game. So that being said, it might be funny to make a fart joke or put a toilet in the game, but it's not really important. It doesn't make the game better. And if anything, silly little things like that can make the game worse because it just disconnects the player from what they're doing. This is a game about exploring a huge environment, solving puzzles, and hanging out with your friends. So, you know, pee pee poo poo doesn't work. It just doesn't. Maybe for me to be immortalized, I can draw a sticker or something that you can put on the board. Yeah, that would totally be cool, Art. But again, you have to sub to YouTube. You have to, and I think you came from YouTube during Ultra Kill, maybe. But sub to YouTube, sub to Twitch, and be in the Discord. Those are the things that are important. Omni, Artificial Sky, Anna, those guys are huge contributors to the channel. They're definitely gonna do all the things. You've done all those things? Awesome, Art. Perfect. So, yeah, we're far away from putting in the extras, but when we get to that time, remind us and we'll start, asking in Discord, hey, we know these people. If you're not on this list and you think you should be, get on the list and we'll start developing your features. But those are going to probably be like the very last things we do. We'll get a call for like who wants to be in the credits, who wants to, have a thing in the game, all that stuff. I really like the sticker idea.
Yeah, me too.
Just came from Twitch, looking for some smart people to help me with your Twitch layout being broken. Oh, yes! I remember now. Okay, cool. Adder is fascinated by this inverted lighting state that you're going in and out of. Adder's like, I'm enjoying this. Tony is not enjoying this. I can tell you right now. He's probably freaking out, going like, I hate this! Ah!
It is really annoying, and I haven't quite figured out why it happens yet, because it doesn't happen in the other version. But
will there be weather in the game? That's something that we're trying to figure out how to do, and that's why Tony's doing this.
If we can do dynamic lighting now, the answer is looking more like yes than it was before. The previous map that I was showing was 100% static baked lighting and was going to remain as such. And if there was going to be like a day and night version or something like that, it was probably going to be like 2 entirely separate light bakes, and those were going to be the only 2 options that you can move between. So this gives us a lot more options. We're using ultra dynamic sky here, which allows us to have weather and change the time of day and change the sky and the clouds and the fog and the atmosphere and all of that very intensely and with a lot of different details and options. So we're probably going to be able to integrate that now. We're still just kind of getting this base setup of the level and the performance and everything dialed in, and then we'll start making decisions about that type of stuff.
Have a good one, Art. Thanks for coming through, man. Really appreciate you.
Good talks.
Adder says, if you want weather, hit me up. Your boy specializes in global lighting weather systems. Don't worry, we will, Adder.
Yeah.
I want weather.
You're going to start regretting offering all of your help here soon, I have a feeling.
Oh shit, Adder says Ultra Dynamic Sky is pretty unoptimized. I'm considering creating a publicly available better version driven by data assets. Let's fucking go, Adder!
I have, to some extent, kind of assumed that Ultra Dynamic Sky probably is not the most optimal version. Although I have, in looking into it, it's not worse than the default stuff you get out of the engine. That I think was kind of my thought process at the time was if it performs just as well as the stuff that you get out of the environmental light mixer and just has all of these nice blueprint configurable options, then I'm just going to go with that for now because it looks good. So
Adder's saying it does a metric ton of stuff on tick, so that's where it's unoptimized.
Yep.
Cool, that's awesome, man. Yeah, we'll definitely hit you up. My being the design guy, I have some pretty wild things that I, in the short story I was saying I wrote about hyperscape and what the player experience is. I've got some things where Tony's like, well, we can certainly try to do that. I don't know how the fuck we're gonna make it happen, but I'll figure it out. So yeah, don't worry, Adder, we'll hit you up.
And thinking about how we use Ultra Dynamic Sky too, I think I turned almost all of that stuff off because it does have a lot of automatic time of day and randomly generated weather and all of those regions and stuff like that. I literally have every single thing unticked, and it's just make a nice looking lighting setup and fog and skybox and stuff, and I kind of leave it at that. If I went any deeper, yeah, I have a feeling I would probably want to start customizing some stuff to some extent.
Yeah, we think weather and lighting and skybox stuff is all going to be related to player progression state. So as you discover new areas and do new things and unlock stuff, that will change the state of the world. And that's That's absolutely what we want to do. So, yeah, we will hit you up. Don't worry. Adder was saying, good job optimizing it because it is very rough out of the box. Yeah, dude, Tony's very good at this stuff. That's why, like, you know, we think the grass looks great, and Tony's like, it's not good enough. But, you know, when we get to a point where I'm like, it's good enough, I'll be like, I'll assert that and be like, let's not worry about grass anymore, bro. Also, I found out that you can nestle delegates within data assets, which is hugely powerful for weather systems. Interesting. Okay. That's very interesting. Okay.
There is that French YouTuber who I don't even like saying their name because I probably say it so poorly, but it's like Ghislaine Guillardo, but kind of like a technical Unreal Engine YouTuber person, and they put out a video about dynamic cloud and weather systems like maybe a month ago. That's like 3.5 hours long, and I guess is a pretty huge deep dive into how to do all of that stuff. So that has sounded interesting. And then I know they followed it up too with dynamic like grass and snow trail and all of that stuff like maybe a week ago. So I haven't caught up on those yet, but that YouTuber is pretty much the person who taught me how to use the neighbor grid stuff that we do all of the coin pusher stuff with. So I have a lot of respect for them, and I think they're really good.
Tony, we should send a link to that over to Adder. He was saying I really want to check that out. That's what I'm finishing up on my current project.
I'll just grab that. I'm just kind of skating around doing nothing right now.
No worries, bro. LFQ says, on a different note, with what we saw with GTA 6 leaks, how people practically crucified the game because it doesn't look finished. You afraid to show too much early development stuff, or you think that it doesn't matter? Personally, I don't think it matters. I'm a big fan of, especially just making games, showing things early and often. When you do that, you keep everyone on the same page. Everybody knows what everyone's trying to make. Of course, it's risky showing this stuff to the public, but that's what we are doing with Fractal Grove. We want to keep people connected to the game creation pipeline and process as much as possible because we think that's really important. I think there's a really degenerate relationship between gamers and game creators, and I want to knock that shit off. I want to stop it. I want to be like, guys, we don't need to be enemies. We can be friends. We make stuff for you. We are gamers just like you. Not all game developers are. And I think that's why they hide, and that's why they keep shit secret and they don't share stuff, is because they're not confident that they won't get found out. So the things that we are reluctant to show LFQ are all the deep secret stuff. I get the most satisfaction as a creator watching people be like, what the fuck is this? That's so cool. The best example I can give is with 0 Hour in the Trevor maze. There was this giant robot that rolled around in this maze in the dark with a big red eye, and you had to escape it. And you saw the maze from up high, and you could see this thing moving around in it. And when you drop into the maze, you're in there with the fucking Minotaur, and you have to get away from it. And that was really cool and very fun. But if I had talked about that beforehand or shown people what it was, we wouldn't have had that big crazy moment. So that's where I'm conflicted. I want to be like, we have all this stuff, but I don't want to show you guys all the things yet. I want to wait till the game's out. We'll give it a couple weeks, and then we'll start dropping dev diaries. Bungie called them Vidocs. So we're working on a bunch of that stuff. We record a lot of things that we're working on. We are building these videos. We're going to put them up on the YouTube. All that stuff will become clear as we ship the game. LFQ says, I'm pretty much on the same side. There just seems to be a disconnect with some in the casual crowd. Yes, dude. I really don't like... So I don't like when game developers are speaking about gamers derisively. I don't like when they call them names. I don't like when they go, you just don't fucking get it, bro. there are absolutely a lot of gamers who don't understand what it's like to make video games. And I think instead of approaching it from an adversarial perspective, we need to start approaching it from they just don't know. Be actual people, talk to them, show them what's going on, show them why it's hard, show them the answers. Like that's what we're doing. And of course it's risky. We're going to catch hate. I know it'll happen. We're not very big right now. You guys are awesome and supportive. We're going to get shitheads in here, and that's okay. I worked on Destiny for 5 years. I read a lot of shithead comments, and you know, you just have to filter it, and you have to be like, this is the price of doing business. You know, it's going to be okay. So I'm confident, and you guys, everyone who comes to our streams and hangs out and chats with us has been nothing but supportive. So I'm confident that the core of our community is going to be positive and helpful and awesome. And I really believe in you guys, and you guys believe in us, and that's really fucking cool. And I want to maintain that and keep that going. Adder writes, data asset preset driven cloud shader that is loaded by data asset class that drives all core lighting actor properties. It's super cheap and allows you to blend any and all params at runtime. Is that useful info, Tony?
Yeah. It sounds like a complex thing to set up initially, but yeah.
And then Adder also says your game is good. Your game is hard, says the gamer. Get good, says the dev. I mean, I kind of agree with that take, but I think that's a shitty way to present the information. I think the best way is to be like, we intentionally made it hard. We like the challenge. I had a really long conversation. Nox, that is Monster. What is it, Tony?
I grabbed this at King Supers. Is Monster Ultra Blue Hawaiian. I think it's new.
Shit.
I just tasted it. It's actually really good.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I was rambling. I was saying some shit. Yeah, okay. So the way to present that information about getting good, I think is I think the best way was put by the Doom account on Twitter. You control the buttons you choose to press. I kind of agree with that, but I think the better way to say it is like, we intentionally made it hard. Oh, that's what I was saying. I had a conversation with a player at GCX when I did a talk there working at Bungie. And this dude was telling me, he's like, man, why did you make Whisper so hard? He's like, it was so frustrating. I had such a bad time. You know, I don't know why you did this. And he was kind of mad at first. And I just listened to him and I was like, you know, man, I hear what you're saying. I intentionally made it hard. And I've played the Whisper more than anyone else because I designed it. And I worked hard at being good at it and understanding the level of challenge. And I indexed on, can I do this solo? And then I know that people could do it in a group. And I was like, I didn't do it to be a dick to you or to make you think that I wanted to punish you or have a bad time. I was like, I did it because I wanted it to be an achievement and a challenge. And, you know, I know that you told me you beat it by bugging out the timer so that you didn't have to use the timer at all to get through it. But I really want to encourage you to go back and play it again because I think you can get good at it. I think you can be, you know, you can master it. And that was a part of the experience that I wanted you to have. And he kind of like, he started to like look ashamed and he was like, I'll go back and play it again. He's like, I think you're right, man. He's like, I could have done it. I could have done it. And I was like, yeah, man, I believe in you. You know, just like I believe in my ability to play. I'm not the best player, but I think that you guys could do it. And I was like, and there's, you know, there's this guy, I think I described it as like one of the world first guys. I was like, there's this guy Puns, this madman who was able to do the entire thing in 6 minutes just by himself. And I was like, so if he can do it, you know, I know that you and your buddies can get through the content. Of course, it's definitely difficult. Of course, there are some barriers. And that's why I made 0 hour work a different way so you can hop back in and there's less friction for starting the activity. That Doom post always gets me too. Adder was saying that was a very high level description of the tech that he was talking about, but when you want to make the dive, we can go over all the details. It took about 2 weeks to build all in. Okay, awesome. Thanks, man.
I'm gonna look at Probably just like building some UI, which I've been avoiding for a while for a little bit, and then I got to get back to PCG. So I'll be definitely pinging you on the PCG stuff, and then we can start talking about weather as well. Yeah, the UI I've literally just been completely ignoring and avoiding, but the game needs a little bit more like video game structure to it now, like, you know, a save game and progression system and the ability to go in and out and, you know, all of that basic stuff. So it just got to suck it up. Unfortunately, doing UI in VR, I would argue, is like 60% more annoying than doing it in a flat screen game. So that's a little unfortunate too. Like, it's building more environment stuff. Everything has to kind of like physically exist. So
yeah, Adder, I don't want to explain exactly what the shader is for, but you're thinking, and I like it.
As you can see, I figured out a way to do a volumetric capture inside the engine. So this is of the landscape, and go on both sides of this thing and kind of look at it in 360 degrees. That's pretty neat.
So yeah, imagine stuff like that. That'll be really fun.
People are asking about boards. I don't know if those people are even still around, but here's just like a random one that an artist did for us with some of our concept art. That's the game logo on the back here. And this is kind of like a block out of like this workshop concept that we're doing, where this will be where you can change what your board looks like and what your trail looks like and all that stuff. So.
Striva says hard has multiple kinds, right? Janky controls, hitboxes, punishing. It really matters what kind it is. Exactly. And I try to, okay, so this is a little weird. I was talking about the adversarial relationship between gamers and game developers. They're absolutely, and this was very frustrating to me as a designer, especially working in AAA. There are designers who like making stuff that is punishing to the player. It's fun for them to make, and I think if you're a designer saying this is really fun for me to make, you're missing the fucking point. Completely gone. It went over your head. It's in another building. You don't even fucking know where you're at that point. You need to understand that the player needs to be prepared for any challenges you give them, and you need to understand what their base skill level is before you give them a challenge. Yeah, Souls-like designers, or nobody's knocked Tarkov off the top successfully. Yes, totally agree. Yeah, Striva, the dungeon master that likes to make encounters that party wipe. That's bullshit. It's not your job as a game designer to have fun making the game. I know that's weird, but it's not. Your job is to make the player have fun when they're playing the game. So a big part of what fun is that balance between frustration and boredom. That's where fun lies. It's in the gap there somewhere. And the best way that I've found as a designer to make things that are fun is to really understand the game that I'm playing first and foremost. So I play a ton of games that I'm working on. Like, I play a ton of that game. So like when I was playing, Return to Moria, this is why I have a feeling, why I was saying I think Moria was kind of mid, especially at launch. I wasn't enjoying it all that much as someone who worked on the game. And I was one of the people who was in every playtest. I would always be playing it. I would participate very heavily in playing it with the rest of the team. Not everyone did that. And there's a lot of excuses and a lot of reasons why. And most of the time, what I hear from designers is like, I don't have time to do that. I have all this shit on my plate that I got to do. And it's like, well, a part of your job is playing your game so that you know what it is. Yeah, I think that's kind of a weak excuse. I think famously, I guess not so famously, but when I was working on Destiny, I had like 3,000 hours in personal time playing Destiny outside of the office. So not only did I play it all day in the office, but I would go home and play Destiny to really understand where players were. It helped that I liked the game, and it helped that the game was live, so we could go play it at home. But that was absolutely not true. I worked with many designers who they had this like arrogant stance where I was like, oh, what do you know, I just met a new designer and I'd be like, oh, what class do you play? And I've had more than one tell me, I don't play the games I work on. I don't have the time for that shit, man. When I go home, I want to be with my family and do whatever. And it's like, yeah, I get that. Work-life balance is important, but you're also going to be worse at your job. So I don't understand the mentality. If you really do care about a game that you're making, you need to play it. It's that simple. Being a DM that party wipes is easy. Being the DM that makes a challenging encounter that is beatable is hard. Yes, it is. It's very hard. That's what I, metaphorically hang my hat on, is that I've made very challenging things, but I was also able to do them by myself. No. Devs can't play the game. They have to read one forum post about how some skill is BS, then they nerf it 6 feet under. Bro, I was at PAX once, and I met a champion designer at Riot talking about League of Legends. And I was telling him that Veigar support was really good and strong, and it was awesome, and he should try it. And they made some really cool stuff, even though they didn't intend for that character to be a support. The guy was arguing with me vehemently about it, and he goes, "You're playing the game wrong. You don't get it." And I was like, "That's not correct, man. Like, you need to understand, what it is." He goes, "You know what? By the end of the conversation, he goes, I understand. I get it now." And he goes, "You're telling me that this character's broken. So what I'm going to do is, once I get back in the office, is nerf the shit out of it so that it's not playable in that role anymore." And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? I was telling you about a player experience that was valid and fun, and your reaction is, I'm going to take this away from you. That's fucking head ass. It's so stupid. So that, again, is the adversarial relationship that is totally unnecessary. I feel like... So wait, I gotta see if you're quoting. I feel like this is what happened with Spirit Stat and WoW. Yeah, totally. You're absolutely right. And I think, Strava, you've mostly played healers, right? Did you play a Disc Priest? I assume you did. If you played WoW. And yeah, LFQ, I thought it was such a strange take. I talked to this guy for like 20 minutes, and his takeaway was like, this is broken and playing in an unintended way. And about like 2 years later, they definitely nerfed Veigar support, but it took the professional scene picking it up, and then they were like, yeah, we can't do this anymore, and they completely reworked the character in a way that made it not really viable anymore. I mean, it's still viable. It was just they really hurt Veigar. Shaka didn't rip, moved to prot healer in arena, and then they killed Spirit. Yep. Yeah, dude. So I have to say, that's what happens when you have a PvE game that has PvP components. They start balancing around PvP. And this was a never-ending debate in Destiny. And it was like, we should always only balance for PvE and forget balancing for PvP. PvP is important, but Destiny's not a competitive game. And I think, so as I wax philosophical about the type of game Destiny is and how players play it, I started to realize that the reason why we were getting all these complaints from players about balancing PvP and making it more fun is because Destiny masquerades as a competitive game, and it is very not competitive. The core of the game is the fantasy of feeling like a space god. And so if you're in that situation, PvP must feel like Mario Kart. It just has to. And you just have to accept the fact that PvP is not competitive. And you need to be vocal about it. And the biggest damage that Bungie did to the perception of PvP in Destiny was trying to say that it was competitive when it is very much not a competitive game and wildly imbalanced. There were some things that were very strong, some things that were basically useless in PvP. And that's just how it has to go. Yeah, Striva, another dub for having Elden Ring separate balancing for PvP. Exactly. You either need to balance them separately or just don't even have PvP. I started making a good amount of money on WoW Arena events. I think that skewed balancing even more after events fell off. Absolutely it did. Again, it's the business decisions getting in the way of what makes the game fun. How do you make more money with what you have? Well, you ruin the game. And then you'll make money over a short term, and then it will fall off and people stop playing. It's Yeah, they're just doing it to themselves, man. Tony, what are you doing with these shaders right now?
I want to get. I have two of these right now. The main one that I've been using. Let's see. So there's one that I made that kind of does everything that I need it to do, and I'm starting to think maybe it looks a little better than the one that I took from the Cassini thing, but I'm not totally positive yet. So I'm kind of trying to combine the two right now. And the idea is that, one, we're going to use this in the game, of course, but I want to make a video kind of talking about the concept of this whole screen inside a game, you know, like simulation inside a simulation type thing, and just this effect that has been used in a lot of games that I like. And the entire original reason that we made this in the first place was just because I wanted to see if I could, because it is an effect that is used heavily in Boneworks, which is probably my favorite VR game. But it's also used in Titanfall 2, it's used in Prey. There's probably other games that we haven't been able to think of yet that, if you guys can think of any, please let me know. But just like, yeah, this idea of kind of using like a screen to, there's probably movies too, but just like a screen to make people think that something is different than what it actually is, or kind of using it to stand in for a window or something otherwise that would be natural and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Another movie based on Aldous Huxley works, The Island, did that.
Do they have that in the island? Okay.
Yeah, man. When they're spoilers, but when they're in the underground bunker thing that they think is the top world, it's all screens and shit, and then they get out and they realize that like there's an entire other world, kind of Silo-ish too, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking about Silo, and it's hard to talk about that concept in Silo without just like spoiling the entire thing for people who haven't seen it. So I haven't decided if I actually want to do that or not yet, but yeah, totally.
Yeah, Adder, you're getting it. Without confirming or denying anything, you're getting it.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. And moving around the world partition, I know you have talked about how teleporting in world partition is difficult and problematic. We're kind of hoping maybe we can have a interstitial space type thing to alleviate that a little bit. But yeah, I really want to keep exploring this concept. They have this thing in Bone Lab, which is the sequel to Boneworks, that actually kind of shows it off really well, I think, and it's kind of like a holodeck. I'm not a Star Trek person, but Vince said this looks exactly like it. So, but you can see here, it just lets you you can select any of these HDRIs, and then it kind of projects it around the room. I would imagine this is pretty much exactly the same thing I'm doing back here in Hyperscape, but it's an effect that they use a lot, and it looks pretty good. They don't do any of the like pixel RGB stuff that I'm doing, but yeah. So I'm hoping to put together a, you know, interesting YouTube video about how we're using this and why I think it's interesting and how it's been used in other games. And there's just some interesting discussion points, in my opinion, about skyboxes and, you know, optical illusions and all sorts of stuff.
And when Tony says I'm a Star Trek guy, I'm a TNG Plus guy, not a TOS guy. Just saying. But yeah, I love Star Trek. Yeah, you're getting it. So if you think about what we're doing with these screen effects, and that's kind of inspiring you and getting your brain into the space of what we're talking about, you should expect shit like this everywhere in Hyperscape, and it's going to be really cool. So yeah, things are not as they seem. There's a secret hidden around every corner, that kind of stuff.
Here's the same thing used in Titanfall. Oh, I was changing there on my mouse sensitivity, but yeah. This wall is also interesting because if you start looking at it closely, you'll start to notice like this piece is a different shape than all of the other ones, and some of the seams don't really line up all that well, and it's just kind of like background dressing, but there's some sloppy work in there in some spots.
Striving, no, I'm not super into Discovery. I'm more DS9, Voyager, TNG. That was like the golden age of Star Trek, in my opinion. I think the new cinematic movies are okay. I've enjoyed them. They're all based on TOS, so not really my thing. Not a big Kirk guy. Yeah, same. I'm also like not into like Below Decks or, you know, the Orville or any of that shit. I just really strongly believed in Roddenberry's vision. I thought Star Trek was really important. It's honestly, LFQ, it's cool. It's very dated. It's not a serial, I think, because there were only like 3 episodes of TNG that were related to each other. I think DS9 is more of a serial because they had, you know, plot threads that continued throughout the whole series. I would say that DS9 is kind of a slow burn. It's more of a drama, and TNG was more like tales from space. Really interesting things that happened. I love the Star Trek movies. Those were cool as fuck. Picard was really cool. I really enjoyed Picard. Yeah, that's the Star Trek I'm into. With the stage fighting and shit, it's kind of corny, but I don't know. It was very cool to me when I was younger. Oh, I'm missing some Nox messages. TNG stands up. I watch it every year. Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, I watch all 7 seasons. I've seen every episode many times. Yeah, serial. What I mean is that like episode 1 and episode 2 are connected by plot threads, and episode 2 kind of picks up where episode 1 left off. That's what I mean by a serial. You have this like story that repeats, you know, in an hour-long block until a conclusion. Yeah, it's all good. I knew you were making a joke, LFQ. I'm just elaborating for other people who may not understand. So, yeah. So each episode of TNG was like not really related to each other, and you don't know how much time has passed between each episode. So that's what I mean when I say it wasn't serial. Yeah. It's still very good though, and I agree with Nox on that. TNG is awesome. It's really good. So is DS9. So is Voyager. Admittedly, I'm not super into Voyager with the mission of Voyager, the characters. I thought Janeway was a somewhat unconvincing starship captain. In Star Trek, starship captains have a very specific role, and I thought Janeway was a little too soft at times and too like emotional, which I thought was weird because like Picard was very much like, I think Picard and Riker are good examples. They had to balance what they chose to do, and of course I'm speaking about characters that aren't even real. This is the writing of the show, but they had to balance their actions against a lot of, you know, competing factors all the time. And I think while Janeway did that, she often did stuff that wouldn't square with like the Federation's mandates and stuff like that. And it broke a little bit and fell apart in my mind. But when you're stranded in the Delta Quadrant, who the fuck knows? You got no rules anymore. I need to turn on streamer mode so I don't get noties. Sorry, chat. All right, there we go. We're in there. Yeah. So let's see. What else can I say about Hyperskate? I'm happy to have you guys like asking questions and like showing you guys this stuff. We've shown Hyperskate many times over the year. How long have we been working on Hyperskate? Like 6 months, 8 months, something like that?
I want to say the first day I ever worked on it was maybe St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, but I mean, like when we earnestly decided to be like, this is the thing we're doing.
It was like 5 days after that. Like I put the prototype together and I was like, you should try this. And I put multiplayer in it so that we could try it together. And then it was like, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, we've been working on it close to a year, which is awesome. What are you doing now, Tony? You doing more shader stuff?
I was just, killing the last 10 minutes here. I wanted to, as part of this whole shader discussion video thing I want to make. I just wanted to talk about like skyboxes and sky spheres and all of that, and I kind of just wondered to myself if I took that capture that I did and I put it on a sky sphere and kind of sized it appropriately and just kind of threw it in here, how that would look. And I mean, you know, if you can't actually see over the walls or anything, it's not the most unconvincing thing I've ever seen. That's kind of cool. And then if I bring it down to like just normal scale here too, it's pretty interesting that, you know, it maintains the perspective and everything, and it still does the screen thing when I get up close to the edge. And I don't know, it's just very interesting. You can take this thing and make it, you know, pretty small, and then you can look at it from the outside, but it still has exactly the same effect that it has when you're looking at it from the inside, which is neat. You're kind of looking across and seeing the opposite wall at all times. Yeah, so these are a lot of like disconnected thoughts that I'm having about all of this stuff right now, but I feel like it all kind of works together at the end of the day. So.
We got some messages from Nox and a message from Burnout. We're working on Hyperskate. Yeah, we were just showing more Hyperskate stuff, talking about it. We've been pretty deep in like performance. So Tony has been trying to figure out how we make all the foliage stuff that we want work, which includes world partition and stuff. So it's a pretty heavy technical lift, so not necessarily as entertaining to show on stream. But we were talking more about it today, and everyone's really excited about it. I think the grass is the same, bro. What Tony's showing off is like a shader and some crazy magic that he did. I don't know how to describe it, Tony. What would you say? You made a 360 HDR?
Like it's an HDRI renderer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a volumetric capture display, I guess would be a technical way to say it.
Nox vetted me as a Trekkie. True Trekkie right there. Thank you, brother. Let's see. He says, speaking of Tarkov, Exaborn playtest is going on. Seems like a fast-paced arcade three-man squad third-person extraction shooter. They must be paying quite well. Lots of streamers playing with #ad. Interesting. I'll have to go check that out. LFQ says he's not fond of third-person shooters. The ability to look around corners cheapens it for me. Yeah, especially in a competitive environment. That was always a problem with Destiny with swords and shit. When you could switch to third-person view, they refer to it as three-peeking because you're third-person peeking around corners. Again, Destiny's not a competitive game, masquerading as a competitive game.
You could do it like a Zomboid, where you can only actually see things on the camera that your character could see.
Tony, Adder asked 3D capture camera ? I think it was in reference to something you said.
Yeah, here, I can show how to do that real quick. I was just going to show Burnout the grass because we did get it looking a little better, probably. So that's kind of what it's looking like now. But yeah,
actually,
I'll show you how to do that volumetric capture. That's really easy.
Yeah, I don't remember when you last played Burnout. So honestly, the game is probably like pretty different from when you saw it last.
So there's two different ways you can do the volumetric capture. One that I can't get to work in our big landscape right now because I think it puts too much stuff in memory, is that you can use the movie render queue, and you don't even have to do anything special. You just turn on the panoramic capture option, and then that will create a panoramic output that you can then run through that encoder process that Vince and I were talking about the other day. And you can create kind of like a VR video, like we posted in the Discord if you saw that in the Game Dev channel. But to capture the HDRI image that I was showing off a second ago that I was putting in those skyboxes, that's actually way easier. All you do is you go in your level and you do a cube capture. Type. So scene capture cube here. I'm just going to drop that in the level. It just kind of looks like a camera. But then I just need to give it a texture target. So I have one somewhere, and it's wherever that file is. So
while you're doing that, Tony, Adder says, dope. Yeah. I make all my skies directly in UE these days with a similar workflow, then export and map paint if needed. Hell yeah, dude.
Oh yeah, okay. So this is in here. Okay, so I have a render target here. I take the render target, I put it on the texture target for this scene capture component. And then if I open it up here now, I can see what it's seeing. So I can set my resolution here and whether it's an HDR. And then you just right click on it here and you go create static texture. And then that is just going to give you a texture cube of whatever is in that at the moment that you do that. And then this is now a texture cube that I can use as any other texture cube would be used.
Oh, damn, Burnout. I'm sorry to hear that you're sick, bro, but I'm glad to have you here. Yeah, I keep thinking about the YouTube chat, you guys talking about third-person shooters. Yeah, I think, okay, so I'll say this. I think third-person is best done in PvE because then there's no advantage in PvP. When you're in PvP, like, third-person camera peeking around corners is whack. I don't think it's great. I will say the exception is like Gears of War. I think Gears of War did third-person shooter really well. I also don't see a whole hell of a lot of difference between first and third-person shooters in basic gameplay experience. The biggest advantage to a third-person. So I was talking about this with Marvel Rivals. I think Overwatch works a little better than Rivals because it's first-person and you're spamming things. So you don't see a lot of the weird animation cancels and shit. And if you're doing a third person, you need to make the character look really good. That's why the Souls games work, is because your character looks good all the time. Even when you're getting hit or fucking animations up, you can't like animation cancel and do a bunch of weird stuff that makes your character look funky.
And I think that's kind of one of the main reasons that we always say third person for Railgun is because looking cool is like core to that game and like all the cool shit that we are trying to do. And just if you don't have you don't get to look at your cool player all the time, there's a lot less incentive to make him look cool in the first place.
For clarity, Railgun is the third-person action shooter that we were talking about that we've been wanting to make for years. Third person's a very intentional choice, and that's why. Rivals has a lot of weird issues with the abilities and attacks not linking up with Crosshair. Yeah, exactly, Burnout. Honestly, I'm surprised people are still playing Rivals right now. I don't understand it. It's not for me. But yeah, I'm confident that third person will work really well for Railgun. I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be awesome. A lot of really good ideas for it too. So
yeah, there's lots of games like, I don't know, off the top of my head, like Risk of Rain. Great third person shooter, feels good. You know, probably wouldn't work as well as a first person shooter.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because of the camera position. Yep, exactly.
Yep.
I think that's probably what makes Tarkov work well, is that, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that makes Tarkov work well. I still think Tarkov is the best shitty game that anyone's made. Like, it's, and when I say that, I don't mean that the game is a bad game to play. I mean, it's a very fun game to play. I just think the quality of the game is low. There's so many like weird little bugs and like shit just not working.
It just has like some magic that literally nobody has ever been able to replicate. I've seen a lot of people discussing this lately, and it's like every single time somebody tries to make a Tarkov knockoff or an extraction shooter, they always just do like one or two things wrong that they're trying to like change from Tarkov that they didn't like or something, and it's always the reason it doesn't work. And it just points to like Tarkov works for like a very specific combination of reasons, and if you don't have all of them, it's not going to.
Nox, are you talking about Railgun to sell cosmetics? Because no, that's a premium game. We don't want to do MTX.
It's not to sell cosmetics, but it is cosmetic oriented in that we want a lot of the incentive to play the game and stuff to be able to make your character look cool and to like be able to, you know, relish in the glory of all of that cool gear that you got and everything you can do with it.
And yeah, Burnout, I know you're a traumatized former Siege player, so I feel you. I know that Siege's balance is very contentious. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Burnout. I don't want to comment on any of that, but yeah. Nox was saying, noticed a large portion of extraction shooters are going free to play. Oh, yeah, I guess I wasn't following Nox. I read the thing about third person, and I didn't know if you were talking about Railgun. I don't play a lot of extraction shooters. I pretty much only play Tarkov. You know, I like the military fantasy. I like the hyper realism in it. I think it's a cool game. And mostly I've been playing PvE. I have played a lot of PvP. First, you know, I go off and on with Tarkov. I'll play like certain resets, and I don't always play it. But you know, having my wife get into the PvE mode has made it really, really fun. So it's definitely not the same. It's much easier, but it's convincing me of some game design choices. I think PvP kind of hurts Tarkov, especially with how rampant cheating is and with just weird shit that goes on, desync and cheating and all kinds of stuff. So just charge me $20-$60 and forget about it. Yeah, exactly. Burnout. No live service games. I think that's whack. Fortnite is a prime example, says Nox. Oh, you mean extraction shooter free to play? I think of that as more of like a battle royale. Is there no point of selling cosmetics in a first-person shooter where you don't see your character close to 100% of the time? Yeah, absolutely. It becomes the less valuable thing to a player.
Unless there's a lot of like other people looking at you, I guess that would be the only justification for it.
That's literally why the social spaces exist in Destiny, is so that you can look at your character and see other people looking at your character, and that encourages a player to buy something that they think looks cool. And it's all meant to leverage feelings out of the player for saying like, oh, I gotta buy this now because it's cool looking, and you know, I've played a bunch. There's a lot of psychological things being used against the player in Destiny. We did go full circle back to MTX. Think about CS and valuable skins. Yeah, but I think CS did it right. It's a free game. Grog alert. Yep, there's a grog. We're getting ready to wrap up here pretty soon, but I want to keep
We're definitely going to be getting a boom raid, so prepare yourselves.
Oh yeah, we're gonna raid Boom. Fuck yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw, but Boom has customized their blueprint editor in Unreal so that it has a Galaxy Japanese Matrix background and all of the nodes are sparkly. So you guys will get to see that when we go over there. It's amazing.
MTX is microtransactions, Burnout. So when you buy a game and then you spend like $2 for a skin, that's what we're talking about. We don't like that. I think it's shitty. It's not good for the player. It's great for the business because you make a ton of money. But in order to make that shit work, you got to do weird stuff that feels bad to a player. You're really making the player feel bad. You're like, well, just go buy this thing then. Then you won't feel so bad. I think that sucks. I'd rather do like merch. I think merch is cooler. Something you can physically have that you don't go like, well, I spent, you know, $2,000 extra in this game on MTX and I don't play it anymore, so money's gone. That feels bad. Adder, please send that along. I want to check it out. Viva La Dirt League. Okay, Burnout. I think people don't hate because it's a free game, and I think that's fine. You don't have to pay anything, and you can still play the game.
And I don't think anybody's complaining that the MTXs are not worth it either. I think they do a good job of making them at least feel worth doing if you want to engage with that system. And they're not required. You can play 1,000 hours of League without spending $1.
And I know I've been kind of hard on Bungie this stream, but I think Bungie did the model the worst way. Buy free, not free. You buy premium game, $60 plus. Buy $30-$40 expansion. There's like 2 or 3
it's
a
like
year.
$500 worth of Destiny games.
And they don't give you very much in it. And then on top of that, you have skins for things that are very expensive. I think it's way too much. And being a social game is what makes it so that people are like, they get stuck in this thing. The concept is called a third place. It's a psychological mechanism. People do family life and they do work life. And then there's a third place where you have a hobby. So the idea behind creating a game like Destiny is to create a third place where people come and hang out with their friends. Traditionally, you might think of it as like the neighborhood bar, where you go hang out with your neighbors and have a couple drinks and all that. And there's like, that's your third place. So it's the third hangout spot. Destiny is very intentionally designed to be a third place, and it's to leverage MTX. I'll add this one more point. There's a very clear line statistically between how much time someone spends in a game before they will convert to spending money on a microtransaction. It's just human behavior. We go, well, I've spent 100 hours in this game. I got good value out of it. I'll buy another thing. That's on purpose. So activities get designed to make you spend more time in Destiny so that you will convert to spending money on the game in more ways. That sucks. I didn't like that. So yeah. Let's see. I think we're good. Let's raid Boom.
Alrighty. Yep. Go spread the good word of Fractal Grow for us, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with Ninja Gaiden.
Ninja Gaiden. I beat Genshin last week, so we're on chapter or mission 3, whatever the fuck it is, however they call it. So it'll be fun.
Alrighty. We love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Go show Boom some love. Drop some trees in chat. Take it easy, everyone.
Here we go.